Hey, it's episode 1, 2, 3 of Future Chat. We made it.
What?
In ternary, I think that is
That's like a cool
six.
number.
I don't actually. I've never. I've never done any kind of ternary. Like, there's binary, right? That's the one everyone knows. I guess this would actually be quaternary if we have zero as an integer. This is getting off the rails so quickly, Nick.
Oh yeah. Oh
I,
yeah. We're gone.
I didn't want to do the 1, 2, 3 thing as that kind of trope of when you get to a number like that. So I tried to go really complicated and I screwed it up.
Can I still be excited when we hit 456?
Yeah, of course.
Oh,
But
excellent.
that's going to be several years, but maybe even a decade.
Details. Details. We got this.
uh, yeah, Mike is currently not here. He
No.
said that he intends to join us at some point, but we're not exactly sure when. And fortunately, we have a small east meets west corner that
Yes.
that we wanted to discuss. So I guess we can do that now. We'll maybe get Mike's input if he shows up, but otherwise we're just gonna go for it.
Yeah. So the news broke this week that the Trudeau government approved Trans Mountain Line 3 and put the kibosh on Northern Gateway.
Mhm.
I was stoked.
Okay, hold
I
on, hold on. For the people that don't know what these are, because even I barely know.
Okay. These are oil pipelines.
Mhm.
These are oil pipelines designed to ooh, because pipelines can transport a whole bunch of stuff, you know.
Mhm.
But I think the primary purpose of these I wait. Okay, wow. This just we're off the rails
It's gonna be
already.
oil, right?
Yeah, but I can't remember if line 3 is new construction.
Okay.
Oh yeah, it should be. Okay.
Okay.
Yes. So they gave approval to those two pipelines and rejected Northern Gateway, which not shocking news if you've really followed the politics of it, because that was basically the Liberals' campaign promise.
Was to block that one.
Yeah, they didn't like Northern Gateway because it goes through a protected environmental area. They like Trans Mountain,
Mhm.
almost, well, due in part to the fact that there is already a Trans Mountain pipeline there. What they're doing is, if I'm understanding correctly, is they're twinning that pipeline. So
Okay.
they're running like a bigger diameter pipe right beside pipe that's already there.
So I guess that way, when you at either end, you don't really have to change the infrastructure. You're just they're almost upgrading because once,
It's like Keystone XL,
yeah.
which Keystone is already there, but Keystone XL will be a bigger pipeline that's going right beside Keystone.
Okay.
Again, if I'm remembering correctly, I might be wrong because I don't do nearly as much research as I should for this show. Also, we decided that we were going to talk about this like 10 minutes ago.
Well, it was in the notes, but my big thing was that I had always heard that, and maybe this is just my kind of internal bias on policy, was that in terms of environmental impact and climate change and that whole deal, we were not supposed to be relying on fossil fuels anymore or trying to minimize it, and to sort of be building these expansive pipeline projects kind of goes counter to that goal. But I guess Canada's economy kind of depends on it to a certain extent.
Pipelines are bad, okay?
No, and that was my thought. So I wanted to be told whether that was actually kind of just my biased thinking, or whether there was, like, whether there's certain truth to that maybe we should be relying less on oil, and pipelines might not be the best idea for the future overall.
Well, I mean, you're not wrong.
Hmm.
I don't think in the far future fossil fuels are, the cat's pajamas.
Right.
But for now, for now, we're still kind of addicted to oil. Like,
Hmm.
if you just turned off the taps tomorrow, the world would not be a happy, friendly place.
Sure.
It would, I don't know if you've heard much about the OPEC oil crisis in the 70s,
Yeah.
but it was a bad time.
Mhm. And so it just so happens that you at the time a couple of years ago now, you were very interested in this whole thing, and you specifically wrote a piece that you shared with us again about, and I don't want to go into the details of it because you said you don't remember. I barely remember having read it, but you were talking about the different ways of carrying oil, and you made an offhand quip, what I thought was an offhand quip about how you wouldn't want, your argument was that you wouldn't want to put it on rails because you can
Yeah,
have
I
rail
sure don't
accidents.
want to put it on rails.
Right.
I mean, I think we're in agreement that oil is not going to be the fuel of the future because at
Right.
some point the energy spent to get it out of the ground is going to be more than the energy we're getting out of that oil,
Right.
which that's fine, that's fair. But like Trudeau says, for right now, there's no industrialized nation on earth that just chooses not to drill when there's oil down there because there's such tremendous economic opportunity in,
Mhm.
in the oil. Um, and if you're getting oil out of the ground and you need to move the oil, there is no better way to do so than pipelines.
Right.
Um, and I honestly feel that the opposition to pipelines has to do with opposition to oil in general. Like,
Okay.
um, and there are arguments to be made about, the kinds of oil and how much environmental impact there is in certain, the oil that the pipelines are carrying because uh, the the oil that we get from northern Alberta and potentially northern Saskatchewan, if they decide to develop their oil sands,
Mm.
it it's it's oil, but it's got a lot of sand in there, and it's sour, so it has some sulfur content. So it's not the nicest stuff to just pull up and work with.
Sure.
So I mean, all that aside, you could go with something like Saudi oil, where you basically just stick a straw in the earth and this light sweet crude starts spewing forth.
Sure.
Hello, Mike. Is it light sweet crude from Saudi?
Generally, yes. I don't know how sweet it is, but it's definitely not
Well, it's
as
not
it's not
sour.
as low quality as it is here. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mike. Also,
Yeah.
welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm gonna
We're
have to
talking
add.
pipeline.
I'm gonna have to add a sound effect there, like a wild mic appears.
But yeah, so the main thrust of my argument, like you said, you thought pipelines were bad because everyone thinks pipelines are bad.
Right.
But so long as we are pulling oil out of the earth and moving oil around the surface of the earth, um, let me give you a couple key figures that some researchers from the Fraser Institute came up with.
Mhm.
And I mean, I get it. It's the Fraser Institute. I mean, but I'm assuming if they're working with actual numbers and if the numbers that they're presenting are accurate, then they probably have a point.
Okay.
So they take the average billions of ton miles shipped per year, the average number of incidents per year from 2005 to 2009, and the incidents per billion ton miles, which, fun units,
Yeah.
but you have to take into consideration how much you're shipping, right?
Mhm. Yeah, of course.
You can't just compare raw numbers of incidents because, the amounts that they ship are wildly different.
Right.
So if you're shipping oil along the road, you can expect 19.95 incidents per billion ton miles,
Mhm. Which
which,
is mostly, if I'm understanding, an effect of the fact that it's much smaller amounts per shipment.
well, it could be smaller amounts. The fact of the matter is they're human drivers.
Yeah.
And have you seen human drivers? They're awful.
Oh yeah.
And if you're shipping it by another popular model that they've been using a lot, especially when oil was really expensive. Railway, you can expect 2.08 incidents per billion ton miles,
Sure.
which is like a tenth the incidents,
Yeah.
which sounds pretty great until you compare it to a hazardous liquid pipeline, which is 0.58 incidents per billion ton miles.
So while that infrastructure is more expensive to set up and it's very specialized, well, relatively
Is it
specialized,
though?
relatively
Is it more
specialized,
expensive to set up?
I would have a pipeline than to have a railway,
A
especially if the
railway or
hazard.
like roads? Roads are expensive.
Yeah.
You
And,
keep
well, any
breaking
large
them.
scale infrastructure project is expensive.
Mike, I think you might be the most qualified of the three
Mm.
of us to weigh in on this.
The only thing I was thinking about, like incidents per unit volume length oil, is that's that's a good way to look at it. But I'm actually curious on more of a like volume lost per volume transported metric,
Sure.
because like one tanker truck incident might leak at worst the entire truck's worth of oil versus a pipeline which, if uncontrolled for any significant length of time, can be a lot more oil.
That
Yeah.
is true.
Right? And
Because they've had incidents where, and it's terrible. It's like awful for the environment, but it's funny to think about it because they're like the control systems just don't work for whatever reason, and there's this unrestricted leak that's been there for a while, and they find it. They're like, "Oh shit!"
what's that weird smell coming from behind that tree? Oh,
man.
oh no.
Actually, fun fact: if there's a natural gas pipeline leak and you're looking for the leak, you're actually supposed to look for vultures, because methane is, symptomatic of
Decomposing. Yeah.
decomposition, decomposing animal matter,
Right.
which vultures love. So if you're looking for a leak, you look to see if you can find vultures, because they're like, oh, there it is.
Yeah. So the other thing is pipeline incidents can also be very small. And I know in the minor leaks, it'll be like, Shell Oil has discovered a leak and it's leaked 500 liters. It's like,
That is
Yeah.
the noise I make. I'm
That's
very
like-
shocked when I hear that news.
it's like 500 liters is like not that much.
Right. That's like a grocery store's amount of milk.
Well, yeah, if you relate it to being, but it sounds a lot worse than it leaked 2 barrels of oil. It's like,
Right.
okay, it's any leak is bad, but
Wait,
You
is
have
a
to-
barrel 250 liters?
I don't know.
It's
Oh,
100
we can do
liters,
some-
I think.
Real time follow up here.
A barrel seems like not very much.
I actually ran the numbers at one point, and I can't remember why. I think it was my
Okay.
energy return
So-
on energy invested thing.
I was actually pretty close. 1 barrel is 159 liters.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very specific.
Is it 100
It's
or some even number of gallons?
probably 158.99 liters. So it's probably however many gallons.
Okay. So, long story longer. Natural gas pipeline is 0.89 incidents per billion ton miles. But honestly, I feel like if you're opposed to pipelines, you're opposed to oil. And that's about it. Like if you
Yeah.
ask, like I said to you, if you ask the citizens of Lac Mégantic how they feel about shipping oil via railway, I'm sure they'll tell you that they don't approve.
Sure.
Incidentally, for listeners that might not know, Lac Mégantic was a large chunk of the city was destroyed after a few rail cars shipping oil derailed and then exploded.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, I'm not sure. Like, I don't actually know whether they're full or empty, but I can look out with a fair regularity. I can look out from my apartment and see the oil cars. Like, if the train's full, 100 cars potentially worth of oil, potentially that I would very much like not to be full and explosive.
Right.
It's only explosive if it's vaporized.
Thanks, Mike.
No problem. So there's also I wanted to mention the rhetoric going around of, well, we should be focusing on alternative energy sources, which I do not disagree with. I think that's a very good thing to be focusing on. But as we had mentioned, as long as we are using petroleum products, not just oil for energy or natural gas, but just petroleum products, clothes and Nalgene bottles, you're gonna need oil, and it's gonna get where it needs to some way. So in the meantime, it's better to have something that's reliable and easily controlled and predictable, like a pipeline, versus railway cars. Railway cars is slightly, it's worse than pipelines, but better than roads, I think.
Oh yes, and the numbers back you up on that, Mike.
Oh, thank you. As we previously
thank
discussed.
you, numbers.
You can use facts to prove anything that's even remotely true. Facts, schmacks.
But yeah, if it's practical to have a pipeline, then I think they should be used. Again, consider all other things considered, such as environment and social impact and whatnot. Like, those things should be considered as well.
Right.
But you need to be reasonable about it.
Yeah. And I also don't disagree with Elizabeth May's point where we should be focusing on much more upgrading and making new and interesting products with petroleum. Because, like, you can make pharmaceuticals and the Pokemon Go Plus with petroleum products.
So,
like, yeah, and Mike's point, I don't disagree that alternative fuels are important, but I mean, it's not as if we can just make an abrupt switch.
Right.
What I would really like to see is Alberta already has a carbon tax. And at least in theory, the carbon tax is supposed to go to like a heritage trust sort of deal. And it sounds like the opportunity has just entirely passed with the new reality of fracking.
Mm-hmm.
But if you had totally funded that, like, the Alberta government could just be kind of living off of revenues right now, potentially, had it been funded very well. And you could also be using that money to research into alternative and new methods of energy generation, energy transport, and storage. Apparently, Suncor is actually huge into that. It's just there's no money in it right now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I was actually, that's a good point you bring up, because a lot of people say that unless you force companies or people to use alternative fuels, you're not going to switch. But the market is a very good motivator for either staying on our current fuel sources or switching, because if it's not worth a company's time or money to extract and produce the oil, they're not going to do it. Like, if oil's at $20 a barrel, like, you're just not going to have people drill for oil. And if the reason for that low price is either for an overabundance or lack of demand, or both, then it's just going to take care of itself. I don't think you need to put these other restrictions, such as denying pipelines or carbon tax, even for that matter, to encourage a switch off of crude or natural gas.
And I'd also like just a note on rhetoric. There is a pipe called Line 9 that was put in place after the OPEC oil crisis. It goes from Alberta to as far east as Cornwall, Ontario. Cornwall, Ontario. Home of friend of the show, Liz.
Well, near.
Former home.
Yeah.
Or something. Detail. But it took the oil from here to the refineries in Ontario. And it was put in place as part of the national energy policy. Talk to Albertans about that. You'll get some strong feelings. Mm-hmm. But for a long time that happened, and it was fine. And then in 1998, it just so happened from the economics of the situation, that it was cheaper to ship oil from east to west because of oil from the Middle East, I guess. And so the flow was reversed, and that was fine. And then a few years ago, the situation had reversed. It was cheaper to move Albertan oil from west to east instead of moving Saudi oil from east to west.
Mhm.
And the stink that was raised when people were talking about Line 9 reversal, like the National Energy Board fielded so many calls of people calling in and saying, well, I'm opposed to Line 9. I don't want any new pipelines. And the response was always, it's not a new pipeline. They're just reversing the flow. Well, I don't like pipelines. No pipelines. Like, okay. And if you've been exposed to any of the footage from like the tribunals that the National Energy Board does, it used to be that if you were a citizen and you had an objection, you could come to the tribunal and voice your concern. They've since reversed that because there were so many people that were not experts, that were not local stakeholders, like just they had no reason to be there other than the fact that they did not like pipelines. And it took up so much time and so much effort and so much money that they were just like, okay, no, unless you're a local stakeholder or a technical expert, you do not come to these tribunals anymore.
This is very complicated. Like, as somebody who is one of those
Yes, politics are.
people, one of those people that said the phrase, I don't know if I like pipelines, I keep thinking, and I started down this train of thought, and it led me to Google the term, what did I Google here? The term oil subsidies Canada. And it made me curious if natural gas, oil, fossil fuels were subsidized in Canada. Because it feels like if we're trying to make them move to alternative energy sources, renewable energy sources, that we should probably not subsidize oil and natural gas. And it seems like there are subsidies, but it also seems like the people that are writing about how they're good have reason for doing so. Specifically, in one case, post-media related reasons for doing so, because again, along with pipelines, I get a bad feeling every time post-media has an opinion about something.
So, Rob, I'll just, if I can just say something, like, I don't want to repeat myself, but like the oil's
I'm gonna do it anyway.
The oil's gonna come from somewhere.
Right.
It's gonna come from somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the subsidies is to incentivize people to develop Canadian oil, because like even like the past 2 years, so many companies, if they had the ability to, have switched, like pull operations out of Canada, like they focused their assets into like Texas and Oklahoma and whatnot.
Yeah.
Or just companies have gone out of business because it just wasn't economic to produce oil here.
Yeah.
And that's still the case. Like it's a bit better now that oil's around $50. Like 45 seems to kind of be the minimum that companies are confident in investing money into developing Canadian oil.
Yeah.
Guys, I just need a timestamp here. I just caught a Charmander using the Go Plus.
I caught a Ditto yesterday using the Go Plus.
It is 9. It was
amazing.
It must have been about 9:22 a.m. Sunday, December 4th. 16. That is spectacular.
All right. Well, I made a timestamp, but it's to cut this part out of the show.
You've got some good stuff for like blooper reel today, Rob.
Yeah. So, Mike.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
The Canadian economy depends very strongly on the position of like the price of oil. Would you agree with that?
Sure.
Yes. Yeah.
And if the market got flooded somehow, or there was word that the market was going to be flooded somehow, the price of oil would probably drop.
As it
Canada's economy would drop.
As it already has.
Exactly. So this led me down because I was thinking back. Sorry?
No, go ahead.
Is there a reason that might be happening even more right now than it was? Because I remember thinking back to a few weeks ago when we were mired in other conversations, seeing a headline talking about a huge oil deposit that was found in Texas, the largest one that the United States had ever seen.
In
Have you heard
Texas?
about?
Yeah.
I assume you've heard about this being
Yeah.
in the field.
Yeah.
What does that mean for like oil in North America?
Without context of how expensive it is to extract that oil and whether it's extractable in the first place, that's its own thing.
Means very little.
Means very little, yeah. Because there's a ton of oil in the ground. Like we don't. That's not an issue right now. And the reason the price had and still is depressed is because there's just so much oil available.
Okay.
Just like any other supply demand,
right?
Market asset, or not asset, whatever.
Okay.
Commodity.
Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. So new discoveries of oil don't mean anything unless it's like, hey, this is way cheaper to get out of the ground than anything else. And then that's when everyone's like, hey, I'm going to start drilling here.
Okay.
And that's why companies are focusing on certain areas in Texas is because it is the most economic to extract versus a place like even Alberta
the oil sands are notoriously difficult, right?
They are, unless you have existing infrastructure. At that point, it's just you're just printing money the more you do it.
Okay,
guys, real-time update.
Because
that was a hatched Charmander, not a caught Charmander.
Okay, delete that timestamp.
I'm gonna make another one to delete this too.
Okay, good. I just thought you guys should know.
Yeah,
it's like every time if I have Snorlax as a buddy and I see him in my journal, I'm like, oh wait, that was just found a candy. Anyway, you can delete that part too.
Yeah.
So there's parts of Alberta where you need like $60 or $70 oil for it to be profitable. Saskatchewan, there's places where it's closer to like 40, which is why a lot of people are kind of still having operations there versus other parts. And then others just continue drilling where they are because they have existing infrastructure and they're kind of, I don't know if the right word is hedging, but they're just counting on it being profitable eventually. So they're drilling these wells in anticipation of it being profitable to sell it.
Okay.
So to answer your question, no, the new oil discovery doesn't have really any bearing on oil price or that kind of thing.
It kind of sounds like all of the, and I guess that's fine. We've talked about this in the past, but all of these companies are playing a very short game. They're playing like their lifetime kind of game.
Depends on the company.
Not their lifetime, but
depends
on generations down.
Yeah, it depends on the company. Like a company like Suncor, who have like these massive operations in the oil sands, like they have like 50-year plans. So these blips are already kind of expected and budgeted for. Yeah. So they'll just work through them. Like they'll make cuts where they can, but they're not like, oh, it's low, we're going to shut down. It's like, we'll just keep producing and we'll make the money back eventually.
Right.
Whereas, like a smaller junior company, they might just kind of cease to exist and then start up again once it's profitable.
You know what would be interesting? If fossil fuel, like oil and gas companies, I guess is the way they describe it in this thing I'm looking at. If they got subsidies, they got oil subsidies if they were also conducting research on alternative energy, as opposed to just flat out getting these subsidies. That,
I mean, like I said earlier, Suncor does a lot of renewable energy research.
Yeah.
And
they would be one of the ones that get that.
Due at least in part to the fact that it's funny, but they actually could really use renewable energy resources. So like they can just pack up a modular solar farm or windmill whenever they go to a drilling operation. And when they need to pack up and leave, they can just pack up the energy infrastructure with them.
Right.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I've said it before that a company would be dumb to, like a big company would be dumb to not be investing and researching in like alternative energies, because they are energy companies. Like they're not oil, they are oil and gas companies, but they're energy companies ultimately. So the way that the world's going, if they want to stay in business, they're going to have to sell like a different kind of energy, right?
Sure.
And they have the capital and the infrastructure to do so, even if it's not oil and gas. We've talked about geothermal on the show before and how you can literally repurpose existing oil and gas wells into geothermal wells, right? So, or like Nick was saying, have these mobile wind farm type setups where you can power your own operations or just whatever grid is nearby, kind of thing.
Sure,
if you wanted to.
So, what I'm getting out of this is, my thought before was that oil and gas companies are playing the short game and not really thinking that much about the environment overall in doing the oil research. And now what I'm taking out of this is that maybe I'm also playing the short game too much and thinking that we need to kind of survive economically while trying to adapt to climate change needs. And so if I think out into a few centuries down the line, we will have addressed that concern because there are companies that are working on those things in addition to doing oil and gas drilling.
And even the oil and gas drilling they're trying to do it responsibly and environmentally consciously.
Except in the case of fracking.
Conscientiously.
But no,
it seems like fracking is universally pretty bad.
It's not, though.
It seems like it.
It's not.
It really seems like it.
The rhetoric would tell that story, but it's really not. And I don't want to start going off on the fracking tangent.
No,
we can save that for another show. But it's
if I could just weigh in briefly, like so far as everyone can tell, when you frack, it causes earthquakes.
Right.
Okay,
which
when you frack,
bad.
it could cause an earthquake, which, like, at that point, it's a little concerning.
But it can be concerning depending where that activity is.
I mean, if it's the Midwestern United States, maybe that's fine. Is that what you're saying? No, I'm okay with that.
I'm saying if it's not near a populated area where that earthquake or the seismic activity, because earthquake is even fairly melodramatic. Like it's seismic activity. It's activating. It's activating existing faults that cause these tremors. That's what the quote unquote earthquakes are caused by. This isn't like a transitional plate slipping and causing a magnitude 9 that causes tsunamis. Like
2 or 3.
This is like if you feel it, it's like
3 or 4.
A lot of people already live in seismically active zones that experience those every day. Those types of things. Like the Fox Creek ones in Alberta, they made the news 2 years ago or whenever it was, and those were larger than normal. But again, like at the end of the day, it was kind of like a no harm, no foul type situation, especially for the town of Fox Creek, who profits greatly from oil and gas activity. Not that they should be okay with the seismic activity in there, but it's not like they're kind of innocent bystanders.
Yeah.
So to speak.
If we're taking the other side to say, like, if we can use hydraulic fracturing to get oil out of the earth more easily, we should. It does make me think that, like, people are talking about the west coast of North America being due for a superquake or something, like some kind of large seismic event. It might be almost maybe scientifically good to actually reduce that stress with some smaller.
That's not
what.
It's not the same zone that would be activated.
No, I know. I'm not saying the same. I'm saying you could potentially use something like that. Obviously, there are risks and dangers of doing that because you might trigger a major earthquake. But it seems like, because what that's doing is kind of relieving stress between two plates or between whatever thing in the mantle is going on. It could theoretically help, but it could also just unleash whatever has been already pent up.
I think you're thinking of it similar to how you'll trigger mini avalanches so that a big one doesn't build up. But at this point,
it's too far.
It's too far. Like it's already built up. Like it's like if there's already a giant avalanche built up and you trigger, it will trigger the giant avalanche. It's not going to trigger a small one.
Right.
So in this case, you'd have to go back like a million years or whatever and release it then, so it hasn't built up to the point it is now.
Right.
If you even could get deep enough to trigger some sort of seismic activity, because I don't know how deep the fault is that they're monitoring.
Yeah. Like, what's this link you posted?
Now that we're talking about oil, I want to plug the This Is That episode once again, where it was fresh off I think it was something about Keystone XL was in the news.
Mm-hmm.
And so This Is That, a satirical news organization, went with a story on how an Alberta energy company wanted to use repurposed water bombers to deliver oil rather than pipelines or rail cars. And it's a wonderful, wonderful story. And the the original link I found that is just that story alone didn't work, but you can listen to the full episode at that link I posted.
Okay.
I cannot recommend it enough. Especially
put
the
it in.
last line where I think he says something. They say, "Now, what do you think of like all the opposition to this idea of yours?" And he goes, "Well, like if people don't want oil to come from pipelines or on rail cars or this method, then I'm literally at my wit's end."
All right. Well, yeah, and people can go and listen to that.
Yeah, please
I'm,
put that in the show notes because it's just stellar. I
Yeah.
love This Is That. Kaya hates it. I love it.
Good that it's so polarizing.
Like everyone in my family hates it except for me.
That's fair. Given our late start, I feel like it is worth going to an after show and following up on a couple of things that Mike had wanted to discuss, and then talking a little bit, I guess, about more of the touchy-feely technology side of things, like the actual personable technology side of things. That sound fair to you guys?
Works for me.
I don't think this is about cell phones, Nick. So I don't think
Touchy-feely?
to raise your ire.
Okay, so if we're gonna have a totally like frank discussion about this, you might also want to cut this out of the episode. Can we actually talk about the Nestle thing and also the selfie story I have from like a month ago?
We can.
Okay. Also, I've got some follow up from last night that I want to talk to you guys about. That can be an after show thing, but
Okay. Well,
I
Nick,
think you would be interested to hear about it.
why? Okay. So which one would you rather do right now this week? The selfie one or the chocolate one?
Oh, don't make me choose.
No offense, but I don't have much to say on the selfie thing. I think it's stupid, but
Oh, it's stellar.
So what made you put it in the notes, Nick? The selfie one?
I just thought it was a really cool development within technology. Okay, so I guess we're talking about it.
It might not go very far, but we'll talk about it.
Researchers developed a tool. Like this can be a 2-minute conversation.
That's fine.
Developed a
Oh, it will be.
Researchers developed a tool that it identifies things in a photographic image, like steep drops in elevation or like sudden cliffs or drops, because there are so many people dying from selfies, apparently. Like it's now in the hundreds where people are looking to take a selfie like on a cliff or climbing a building or something like that and then taking selfies there. And I thought the title of the paper was kind of melodramatic. It was like me, myself, and my kilfie, because selfies that kill.
Sure.
Yeah. But it develops these red zones where like it could be potentially very dangerous. And so the idea they have for this app is that, if you're trying to open your camera or Snapchat or whatever, it could take a preliminary scan of the image and then decide, no, got a bunch of red zones in this picture. I don't think you should be taking this picture, and then just not allow you to take the photo if it's too dangerous. And it identifies that with 73.6% accuracy.
I mean, right away, I see some potential problems with this.
Like?
It would require somebody to specifically look out for their own safety before taking a picture. And these people seem prone to not want to do that.
Well, no, but that's the thing. Like, it would stop you from doing the stupid thing.
Okay, can I say something? So
I thought you didn't want to.
From the description of this app, it sounds like you have to actually open the app to check before taking whatever picture you're planning on doing anyway.
Well, that's what they have now, but the idea is that it would run in the background or preliminary to something else.
Kind of pointless to talk about that because that's not what it is. So as it is right now, you have to have the presence of mind to say, let me check if this is a dangerous situation. So one, if you have that presence of mind, you're probably not in a dangerous situation.
Okay, Mike.
2, if you have to ask, you probably shouldn't be there anyway.
Mike,
So if I'm hanging off a cell phone tower and be like, is this a dangerous situation? You're taking a selfie? Let me check my handy little app. Oh, wait. Oh, I better scale down this tower I just climbed up. Yeah, no, thanks, app. You really saved me there.
Mike, you're a father.
I am.
What? Could you state for the record your daughter's name and how old she is?
In so much as you feel comfortable.
Her name is Emma, and she is 4.
Okay. When's the last time Emma did something stupid, in your opinion?
I honestly wouldn't say she's done anything stupid.
She's
pretty good.
She's a child. I've worked with children a lot, Mike. She's done something stupid, I bet, in the last 24 hours. It's not like this is a neutral judgment.
She's thrown caution to the wind and chosen to not heed my advice before. Yes.
Okay.
And that probably happened at least probably a week or 2 ago. Probably the last.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, has she potentially injured herself doing something that you told her not to do?
Yeah, it's just she has.
Okay. Okay, so here's the thing, and I mean this as value neutrally as possible. Mike, children are stupid.
Yes, I agree.
And they will do stupid things.
I agree as well.
But if there was a thing on the cell phone that said, no, I'm not going to let you do this stupid thing that you're about to try and do.
Yes.
You're saying that's not valuable.
If it worked that way, yes, but it doesn't.
Well, this is the preliminary work to make it that way, Mike.
Yeah, well, if
ifs and buts are Canadian nuts, then we'd all have a Merry Christmas, Nick.
Thanks.
I was thinking of
that exact quote, and you took the words out of my mouth. So
excellent.
Can I bring this together?
Why not?
What if say Android, because iOS this is never going to happen, so it's not even worth discussing. What if for Android you could put this app on your child's phone, and it could run in the background, like you say, and just constantly be scanning and not allow camera apps, for instance, to open? Because it seems like before camera phones, before smartphones, before all this, people were still going to these dangerous locations. They just weren't necessarily taking pictures or weren't taking digital pictures.
Right.
Or they weren't like putting their back to a cliff and then taking a picture that way.
Yeah.
Right.
When there wasn't a semi-competitive, maybe subconscious element.
Well, there was. It just wasn't. It wasn't necessarily dislocalized. It was very local. Like you'd have a group of friends that would all be like, "Oh, let's go climb this thing."
Sure. Yeah.
Say we did it.
Yeah, but you didn't have Instagram with millions of followers seeing these pictures and saying, "Oh, I'm going to do that too."
Mm-hmm. And the other thing, so that's one thing. You could put that on Android and have it a thing that parents would install on their kids' phones. But there's also going to be so many false positives, because the last time I can think of this happening, I went to Niagara Falls, and I was standing there next to the handrail looking over a steep drop off towards the river where the falls are. It would flag that as dangerous, but I'm in no more danger than the other thousands of people there taking pictures that aren't about to dangle off the edge. Yeah.
Well, like Nick said, it works with 75% accuracy. So 1 out of every 4 pictures would be a false positive.
Maybe the other 25% is railings.
Railings? Yeah, maybe. But that's the whole point, though.
Against a railing, it's okay.
I would rather more restrictions be put up for signage and railings than there are. Then I would prefer an app that tells you.
That's potentially spoiling a natural landscape or natural beauty.
Mm-hmm.
I thought you were going to say natural selection process.
That too.
No, but I mean, yeah, it's not what I was going to say, but valid.
So yeah, this selfie thing, while it is interesting research, I don't know that it's particularly.
Is it though?
Interesting, not good. Interesting.
Fascinating.
It's something.
Mm-hmm.
And here I had a cell phone story that I thought was going to be thrilling.
Nick, I'm out. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not investing in your app.
Oh man, and there's only one dragon left, and he already said he hates this.
I need 90%.
I'll give you 90%. for $10,000. Nick, I'll give you 90% for $1. Done. Sold.
And then in the back room, I really value the experience that Mike brings to this project.
Oh man. So should we go to an after show now? Nick, are you okay? Do you want to talk about the chocolate thing too? Is that
I would love to talk about the chocolate thing because in the
chocolate
pre-show
thing,
we held off talking about it.
I feel like the chocolate thing deserves its own header on a show.
I'm gonna have to not talk
that way.
Okay, we're 46 minutes into an episode.
Right.
We can do another 15, can't we? Or do you have a hard out?
I don't have a hard out, but I also know that there's this stuff that is actually kind of not more topical, but more.
What else is going to be more interesting than this?
The iPhone 7 home button. That's what.
I don't think that part is getting more interesting. But I do want to hear your anecdote from last night, Nick, and I do want to hear Mike's ancillary topic that isn't in the news cycle, but is relevant right now. I feel like the chocolate thing deserves its own separate.
We should have a chocolate after show is what we should have. My thing is going to take like a couple minutes.
The chocolate thing?
No, the cell phone thing.
Okay.
So let's go to an after show then.
Like
an
right
after
now?
Show to do the chocolate?
Oh, to do Nick's thing and my thing. And then the iPhone 7 home button thing.
So Nick, are you comfortable with the chocolate being next week?
Are we deleting this part out of the show?
I don't know. It depends how it goes.
Do we have to? It's like this could be a pretty solid episode if we talk about chocolate now. Like the all no cell phone special until the after show.
But we've already ruined that with your story. Yeah.
Touche.
You brought up an app.
Could be the all Nick story special.
So Nick, here's the main reason that I think it should wait personally, is that while I heard this headline in the last couple of days since it came out, I haven't had a chance to actually read what it's about. And because it does pertain to chemistry, I want to actually have more of an understanding of what's going on.
You can skim the article pretty quickly. It's not that hard or that long. Phrasing.
So you're going to talk about this, and it's going to be another 2-minute discussion. This is what I'm hearing.
Just for the record, the cell phone story.
The chocolate thing is my story.
I know. That's what I mean. Nick didn't even put it in, but he's adamant about talking about it.
I really want to talk about it.
Okay, Nick, tell us what's going on with this chocolate thing.
I think Mike should tell us what's going on with this chocolate thing.
So, everyone's favorite food company, Nestle, has come up with a way to use, was it 40% less sugar or 40% of the sugar? I don't remember.
40% of the sugar.
40% less
Wait,
sugar.
40% less.
40% less sugar for the same level of sweetness as they're currently getting from using the current amount of sugar in their products, specifically the chocolate bars. And they did this to restructure sugar. To quote unquote, to structure sugar differently is how they're saying they did this. This is where kind of the chemistry part comes in, because there's structuring sugar has a very specific connotation when said in the context of chemistry. And I think this is where you guys can kind of jump in and explain what this might involve. But from my understanding, alternative sweeteners like sucralose and aspartame, they're also kind of like restructured sugar with stuff taken out or put in.
They're specifically different. Like sucralose, for instance, is a sugar molecule that has a chlorine swapped out.
Right. Okay.
Different group.
Right. But they're mostly carbohydrate, right?
Yeah.
Like
carbon dioxide techniques, but yes, that's fair.
So again, it's basically restructured sugar, these alternative sweeteners, and you generally use less of that sweetener to get the same level of sweetness. And that's why Sugar Twin, those packets are like super tiny, but you still put one pack in to replace one pack of sugar in your coffee. So in this case, they've restructured sugar so that they can use 40% less while still getting the same level of sweetness. Taste wise, I don't know if it's supposed to be the same.
They said they want it to be. They said they want to taste the same. That's the goal.
So, which is kind of the goal with any sweetener, and that's why different people have different allegiances to alternative sweeteners. I think stevia is kind of one of the more common and recent.
That's just like a natural ingredient that also happens to be sweet.
Okay, so that's not really the same.
Stevia is naturally occurring. Just happens to be incredibly sweet.
So you're saying it's not a chemical, but you're saying it's natural, but it's not.
Well, they're all chemicals.
Oh.
He's not wrong.
Chemical is anything with a known structure or makeup.
I was being facetiously joking, but
it wasn't funny, Mike.
Okay, so do you guys want to talk about what might have been involved in this restructuring of sugar?
I'd like to first talk about sucralose and just say that it's like the way it works is it's kind of like designer drugs. Like, do you know how designer drugs work?
I'm familiar with the term. I don't know how it works though.
So you take something like heroin and then you just swap out 1 or 2 atoms and make it slightly different. But the idea being that when they outlaw heroin or insert a legal drug here, it's that specific chemical structure that they're outlawing. But if you change it just enough so that it's not technically the same thing, but it still acts in the same way, like it's still whatever receptor is latching onto it, it's still acceptable for that receptor. Like, so it's still having the desired effect. It's just not actually the same thing. So sucralose and other artificial sweeteners are like that in that they will attach to your sweet receptors, but they're not like the geometry or whatever it is isn't compatible with the human metabolism. So you can't metabolize it. So it just passes straight through you and technically has 0 calories.
So this is kind of like designer sugar.
Yes.
And on a more kind of taking it further, you'd say it's like an alternative sweetener, but they're calling it just a different kind of sugar.
Well, sucralose would be.
No, well, sucralose is alternative. This, what the Nestle's trying to come up with or has come up with, sounds like it's also like an alternative sweetener, but it's more just.
So my guess for what Nestle did would be. So normally, I'm forgetting the name now. Sucrose.
Yeah.
Rob, sucrose tends to be table sugar, right?
Yeah, it's glucose and fructose stuck together.
Yeah, it's a disaccharide.
Yeah.
So my guess, like this is just wild guess on Nick's part. Having watched Alton Brown for quite a while now, I'm specifically remembering him making simple syrup for I think it was a cocktail episode actually. But he mentions in that if you sit and boil the sugar for a while, what happens is you hydrolyze the bond between the glucose and the fructose monosaccharides. And so what happens after that is you actually have more sweetness out of the sugar than you originally had, because like one sucrose molecule is going to be received separately. And so you end up with like more sweetness per what you've used there. And so my guess would be that they've just taken sucralose and hydrolyzed it and said, hey, look, for the same amount of calories, you have the same amount of sweetness.
You have more sweetness.
Same amount of calories, more sweetness, so less calories, same sweetness.
So if you wanted to go for the same amount of sweetness, you could slash the raw amount of sugar that you're using.
Right.
That would be my wild, hot takeiest guess.
And so, Nick, would you agree? Because my assessment is similar to that. And would you agree that process, you wouldn't really construe as actually changing the chemical structure of the sugar, really? If we're just talking about hydrolyzing a bond.
Well, I would say that it's
okay. No. But like the Guardian article that we have here specifically mentions that it dissolves more quickly, which would suggest that bond has been hydrolyzed.
Yeah.
And that while that is technically a chemical change, it's a reversible one. First of all, it is very low energy compared to the other bonds in the structure. I wouldn't really characterize that as a real chemical change. It's more like just the process of dissolving it in water. Like dissolving in water would already do that. It's
Dissolving and heating.
Yeah.
You have to heat it to hydrolyze the bond.
Right.
Where's the actual...
There's no link to the actual...
Yeah, I looked for an actual thing too, and there wasn't.
The Swiss food company, whose products include Kit Kat, Arrows, and Yorkies, said it has achieved the reduction by discovering a way to structure sugar differently. But
did you read it that way because it was The Guardian?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, I did, Mike. But I mean, yeah, it's not like a sucrose to sucralose jump.
Right.
It's not that kind of jump where you've made it a non-metabolizable,
right?
A non-metabolic.
Sucralose is perhaps not metabolizable. I'm not sure on that. But
how often on this show have we stopped and wait, is this the word I want? What's the word I want? We need a linguist.
For my purposes, sucralose is still it's a much sweeter molecule, but it is still broken down by the body the same way sucrose is.
Is it?
The other one, it is
aspartame.
I forget if it's aspartame, but
I think aspartame is considered maybe not a laxative, but
yeah, it's non-digestible.
Yeah.
And so your body doesn't actually process it. It is sweet, but it just goes through your system. It doesn't get digested. Yeah. And that's why it's low cal.
This is why the article kind of raised more questions than it answered.
Yeah, it raises so many questions.
Because they talk about sweetness, but they don't talk about taste.
Right.
And like you're alluding to, like aspartame and sucralose are also sweet.
But they taste differently.
They taste quite different. So that's why I'm wondering, like, well, how different is this new restructured sugar?
Right.
Okay, so you can find that out right now, potentially. Like if it's the thing I think it is, you take some regular sugar,
right.
Mm-hmm.
and then you take some more sugar, you boil that in water,
mm-hmm.
and you taste the simple syrup you've just made versus the sucralose, and that would be the different taste.
So why don't we use simple syrup
sucrose.
Why don't we use simple syrup more to sweeten stuff, like in baking or...
Well, because it's an extra processing step. Boiling things is very expensive on an industrial scale. It's boiling water specifically.
Yeah, well, that's true too.
So, like, it's much cheaper to just take the cane sugar or the sugar beets and extract the sugar than to also hydrolyze the sugars.
Right. Because the cynic in me read this article and said, well, this just saves them 40% of their sugar cost.
Yeah.
But
that's why they're doing it for sure.
Right. No, like that's maybe it's not cynical, it's just realistic. But if what you're saying is true, that it's fairly expensive to do that in the first place. I don't know how much, maybe just the economics work out that even with that added cost, they're still saving money.
Yes.
Maybe.
Possibly.
I think they found a way to do it efficiently enough that it's worth
Yeah.
doing to save money.
Right. Also, I'm sure with the marketing campaign, they'll make
Yeah.
a bunch of that money back.
Yeah. Well, and it's not like they're not heating stuff already. So maybe just even through like heat exchange, they're able to make up some of that cost.
It's very possible.
I don't know.
Yeah.
They can incorporate the process. Like
Yeah.
if you've ever looked at the process of how they make caramel bars, it's insanely complicated to get the caramel inside the chocolate and make it all seem like it's one contiguous piece. The chemistry and science that goes into making chocolate and making chocolate bars specifically is super complicated anyway. So I can imagine adding one step like that is worth it to them.
Right.
So having started this story now, I really feel like we have, first of all, as we mentioned, raised more questions than we've answered, and that we need to follow up on this now at some point anyways.
That's great because it's a fascinating story. I'd love to I'd love to cover it more.
It could be fascinating. It's tantalizing right now, but it might not be fascinating.
Yeah.
If it is just hydrolyzed, I don't think that's super interesting unless they do it in some kind of creative way.
Yeah, well, listen to the guy who's not in marketing.
Are any of us in marketing?
Well, I'm saying like you don't think it's exciting because you're not in marketing.
Right. Well, yeah, the opportunity to say that our chocolate now has 40% less sugar in it is definitely an interesting marketing thing, but
Yeah. I
given
mean,
that
the
this
only
is
other thing I can think of, like it dissolves faster.
Mhm.
Like maybe they just ground up the sugar.
Yeah, that was my thought. It might
Powdered
just be a
sugar would
mechanical
also dissolve
thing.
faster. It's like
Right.
it is structured differently in that the crystals are much smaller.
Yeah. I hope it's not that, but it very well could be that.
Yeah, that would be just silly. Watch that be it.
It actually, yeah, it does say the new process is said to make sugar dissolve faster.
Mhm.
Hmm.
And it goes into no detail about the actual processes other than to say that they are patenting it.
No, if it's patentable, then maybe not.
Who
Unless
knows?
it's like a specific patent pertaining to sugar in chocolate bars.
It doesn't actually say they got a patent. It says that they're
Oh,
patenting it. You
I
can
really
try
want
to
a Kit
patent
Kat
anything.
now.
Yeah. All right. After show time, I'm going to say
sure.
yes. In that case, thank you for listening to this week's episode of Future Chat. You can head to unwindmedia.com/future chat for past episodes of the show and so much more. See you next week.
Ciao.
Toodaloo.
Okay, Mike, you have 90 seconds to tell us about the iPhone 7 home button.
Okay, that's more than enough time.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was on this show or not, but I was having issues finding an iPhone 7 that had a working home button that I could try. Because since reading about it, that was kind of the biggest change, even more than the headphone jack, I think. Like, because people don't, I don't know. Anyway.
Unless you constantly plug something into your headphone jack.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So to me, that was the bigger change, was the removal of the home button.
Mm-hmm.
Not that is revolutionary, because Android's been doing that forever, but they're implementing it in a way that's supposed to, in theory, simulate having a home button, kind of. Like, they still have the depression where it would be, and when you press it, it gives like a
feedback.
Response, like a feedback that's similar to a tap.
Mm-hmm.
And speculation was that it was supposed to function similar to like the Force Touch trackpad that, according to some people, made you think that there was actually a click when there wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, I was curious to try it. Not having had tried the trackpad, I didn't know what to expect. But when I tried it, the first couple times at Best Buy, like the phones just weren't giving anything. Like there was no tap, no nothing. I'm like, okay, well that's kind of weird. Like the button still worked, it just wasn't giving any sort of feedback. Talking to the employees, they're like, "Oh, are you sure it's not working?" Like they just didn't even know what it was supposed to do, I think. So I'm like, "Okay, fine. You guys are useless. Yeah. I'm gonna find." Actually, it was your advice to say, "Well, go to an Apple store."
The Apple store, yeah.
And I'm like, "Okay, that's probably my best chance of finding a working phone." So, long story longer, I went to the mall where there was an Apple store and tried it. And when I first pressed it, it felt like I was like squeezing the phone. Mm-hmm. And the back like indented in, like, you know, when you have like a cheap plastic product and you like press it and it kind of goes click, like I was like, what the heck, like, is this phone broken? So I tried it again. I'm like, cool, it's happening every time I press it, even if I'm not pressing hard. I'm like, maybe that's like how it's supposed to feel. And sure enough, that was the actual response that I got when I pressed the button. And I wasn't a fan of it, like, at all. Maybe after having used it for an extended period of time, I would have got used to it, or started to see that it was a nice thing to have. I think Casey on ATP took a bit to get used to it. He hated it at first. Now he likes it. Yeah. I don't know if it's the same way with everyone, but my first impression of it was that it was not a pleasant response back.
Because you can also change the intensity of the vibration.
Yeah. And I think if I were to use it and play with it more, I'd probably do a less intense tap, like tap back. What's been your experience with it so far?
Well,
I guess you don't have a 7.
I don't have a 7. I still have the SE. And I have tried it a few times now, and every time it seems completely inoffensive to me. I don't really, like, right now, I use the home button sometimes, but like I have my iPhone set so that when I tilt it to an angle to view it, the screen automatically turns on. and I have it set that I don't have to actually press the home button in order to unlock it. I just have to put my fingerprint on it. And so I don't press the home button to unlock it really at all. I only press it to close apps and like activate Siri, for instance. So having used it, it seemed to me like something that I would almost instantly be used to. And it would just be no different than feeling the kind of press of the thing. I have heard that it's weird to people and disconcerting at first because it seems like it should just be the home button pressing in, and you're not feeling that. You're just feeling kind of the entire bottom half of the phone shake a little bit.
But it's not even a shake though, because like my Android phones in the past and still does, it has a vibration, like what you'd expect a vibration to feel like. It vibrates when you long press, when you unlock, like whatever. This wasn't a vibration. It was
it's a very, very short vibration, like so short that it's like 2 or 3 cycles or something.
But it was like, it was a tap, but it was it tapping me. And I was like, what the heck? That was weird. Like it was different. And again, maybe I'd get used to it and even find benefits from it. But I just would have expected either like a vibration or a simulated press. Like, I don't know how they would have done it, but that's what I kind of expected to be. And it wasn't either of those things.
Right. They went to pretty great lengths during the introduction and announcement of it to say that the Taptic engine, the part that runs this vibrator, is basically a very strong, like a very powerful, very precise actuator, so that it, like a normal vibration motor is just a little thing that spins within the phone quickly to like shake weight around. And the Taptic engine is a very, very precise, fast actuator such that it can basically just go and like it's actually the engine itself responding quickly and then quickly shutting itself off on a much shorter time scale than normal vibration engines in phones are doing. And so it comes across as a tap. And like I've definitely felt that with some of the notifications on my watch, is that it's not like a traditional vibration motor. If your phone vibrates, even if it's for a very short period of time, you can usually hear it. Whereas if I'm wearing my watch, I feel like I can hear it, but I'm pretty sure it's just me feeling it, because nobody, even if they're right beside me, has ever gone like, oh, your watch vibrated. It's just me. Like even if they're right beside me in the quietest room possible. So it does seem different. And I haven't actually tested. I meant to test out at the very beginning, if you lay it down on the table or some hard surface and try to unlock it, whether you can hear that go through the table. But I haven't tried that yet.
I gotta say, I was so wrong. This is a thrilling topic.
Thank you.
We're all animated. We're all laughing. We're all having a good time. I'm sure it's thrilling listening. And I wanted to apologize.
So all of that to say, none of us are affected by this right now. There is a somewhat reasonable chance that none of us will ever be affected by this. And
it's very reasonable.
That's really all the discussion we need to have. I'm good for now. Do you feel like you got your thoughts across, Mike?
I do. I hope my vibration experience doesn't change in going forward for my phone or future phones.
Oh yeah.
If I can help it.
I mean, when I touch my phone, I expect it to vibrate in very predictable, very reasonable ways. And
I know you're being sarcastic.
Unreasonable vibration.
But I do actually feel that way.
I don't know if I could ever adapt to like a different way of my phone vibrating.
When I fingerprint unlock my phone and it vibrates, I'm like, yep, it's unlocked. Like I know that vibration means it's unlocked successfully.
You need that feedback.
I do.
Your phone just feels like a plastic POS. Like then it's not a satisfying vibration, you know?
It's funny how the sarcasm sounds indistinguishable from someone.
Exactly.
That is deadpan. That's deadpan, all right.
I feel that way non-sarcastically.
I know. That's what I'm trying to get at here.
So Nick, what is your cell phone story from last night?
Oh, so I went to Kaya's.
This is going to be thrilling, by the way. So buckle up.
I went to a work Christmas party with Kaya last night. Members of industry science and economic development. And so, chat with people. And there were a bunch of people from Spectrum Ops there. And so I just, chat with them about, what they do with the wireless spectrum, how all that works. And so I ended up talking to a guy who is part of the emergency management team. So the guy who, they're working on ensuring that you have cellular uptime and how to worry about that and how to make sure that key people have cellular access when they absolutely must have it.
Mm-hmm.
Disaster management basically is the long and short of what they want to be doing. And I was sitting there talking to them about cell phone technology and going, I wish Rob and Mike were here because I don't even know the right questions to ask. I don't. I am interested, but I feel like I am so less thrilled than Rob and Mike would be if they were here right now chatting with this individual.
Just so you know, for your own interest, I am just as non-thrilled listening to the story as you were experiencing it.
Oh, you guys. Why must we fight?
We're not fighting.
We're
having a great time.
Disappointed in each other.
Well, I mean, for at least former fan of the show, David, once listened to one of our episodes and said, "So do you guys like each other? Or what's the dynamic there exactly?"
Oh, man. So that's fine.
That's what I wanted to tell you guys about.
This was very productive follow-up.
This is an actual, I'm sorry, it wasn't 90 seconds. It's probably closer to 270 seconds. But.
Mike, I do want to get to your, I want to hear at least what your question is about tech support that you wanted to raise in an after show.
Yeah. I think we've all experienced this, but when someone asks you a technical question, it's like, oh, my computer's acting this way. Why do you think that is? Unless it's something we've experienced before, all the extent of my tech support is Googling the question and finding an answer. Because this happened the other day when my manager was like, oh, my computer's it was an Excel spreadsheet and the pictures were disappearing. He's like, why do you think that could happen? I don't know. I don't see why that would ever happen. Mm-hmm. So I just Googled pictures disappear in Excel document, and someone had the same issue and gave, Control-6 seemed to bring them back. And so I told him that, and sure enough, it worked. And he's like, oh, how Control-6, how'd you ever think of that? I'm like, well, I just looked up the question. And
oh, Nick, you already posted the link that I was going to
post. Yeah. So just for our listeners, we have a relevant XKCD.
Yes,
we sure do.
So as it's become custom, there's a relevant XKCD for everything.
Yes.
And
every so often, someone's asked me a technical, a tech support question, and I have actually forwarded them this cheat sheet.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys have ever read Tales from Tech Support on Reddit.
Oh God, have I ever?
I love that subreddit. It's the best thing ever. And
yeah,
people on there would agree that a lot of tech support is either you've experienced it before, so you know how to handle it, or you know how to Google and look up how to handle something.
My experience with this has been both of those things. Even if I have experienced it, I don't necessarily, if it's been a while since I experienced it, my response is not, rather than going to Google, is to go into my bookmarks and find the link that I've saved I've saved before because I've looked it up so many times. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's the solution. Using, with Excel, after replacing my VLOOKUPs with index matches, I bookmarked the page why index match is better than VLOOKUP, because I always forget the syntax and I go look it up and I'm like, oh yeah, now I remember how to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is amazing. The only time my expertise, and this actually happened last night, the only time my expertise is kind of important is when you go, and I think there's another relevant XKCD for this. You go to Google and there's some guy.
Yeah.
And it was this years ago, and there's just no follow-up about it.
Yeah.
You're I wonder if that guy ever got his
What
answer.
happened?
Yeah.
What did you do?
So last night, I finally convinced Julia to let me install iOS 10 on her phone. It's been out for at least 3 months now, almost.
So you can send her fireworks now?
I can, yes.
Nice.
And so the problem that she'd been having, because she had tried, because Apple introduced this new update feature with iOS, I think it was with iOS 10, it might have been the middle of iOS 9, but to let you schedule updates for between 2 and 6 a.m. or something like that, like some middle of the night time when you're not going to be using it. So you would have to enter your password, go through the whole protocol of doing the update, and it would be like, okay, well, we'll do it while you're asleep. And so she would do that. She would set it up, and then she would wake up, and it would be like, this failed. And we thought, or I thought, that it was because she didn't have enough space left on her phone, because she was constantly running into errors, because she'd go into her settings and there'd be 0 bytes available. It's like, well, that is a computer that's going to crash all the time. And so I deleted a bit of stuff last night and tried to do the process. She had a few hundred megabytes free, and it still didn't work. It just gave me this retry error. And sitting there, I was like, I really don't want to have to plug this computer in to my desktop and run it through iTunes to update it. First of all, it means downloading the update again. It means potentially having to deal with reinstalling the operating system and losing all her stuff. I just didn't want to have to go through that unless I absolutely had to. And it turned out I went through the process several times and it just hung and wouldn't finish. All I had to do to fix it was turn off the phone and then turn it back on. And when I turned it back on, it took a super long time to start. And I was just like, it's doing the update now. It behaved like a Windows computer. It was like, it just needed to be reset. And then when it started up, it did what it needed to do.
Right.
But it took months of actually like convincing her, because she was just like, yeah, it doesn't work. And I was like, that is really frustrating. If I was a non-technical person, I would be super frustrated. Being who I am, I would solve that within 20 or 30 minutes by doing whatever I had to do and then go through with it.
Yeah.
Rob, have you watched the IT Crowd? Because I think we've talked about this before.
I've seen some. I think I watched at least one episode with you, and like a long time ago. I'm almost certain.
It's
like
possible
when you
that
lived at Lee's. I have seen it. I have not watched it.
Okay. Have you heard they answer the phone, "Hello, IT. Have you tried turning it off and on again?"
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
That, to be fair, that shouldn't have solved the problem. But
it
somehow
does magically, like half the time.
Yeah. That's not the update process for iOS. I should have had to restart it and then start the update again, and that would have fixed it. But this was like one step further. It was like all it needed was to be turned off for some reason.
Yeah. That happened on Maria's phone before, and it had happened on mine, which is why I knew how to do this. Mm-hmm. That she was trying to do like a video chat, and there was no sound coming. She couldn't say anything. Like they couldn't hear her on their end, but she could hear them. So she was mentioning that to me. I'm like, oh, did you try turning it on, off and on again? She's like, no. So she did, and sure enough, it worked. And I don't know why, but for some reason, just I think the mic gets deactivated, or the process that runs it shuts down, and you have to restart the phone to get it started again. Yeah. But yeah, it's one of those things where like you shouldn't have to do it, but for some reason it works.
Mm-hmm. Actually, on the topic of this XKCD comic that I've now put a link to, that they'll be linked to in the show notes to both of these. It gets more relevant the longer it goes, because it references 2003, and when it was posted, it was a while ago. But now every year it gets further and further into the past, and it gets better and better that nobody's answered. But yeah, I've done this one with many forum threads. Just like someone posted a question years ago, nothing happened. They never posted about finality of it, and you're just like, I have this exact same problem, and you want to like reach out, email this person, be like, what did you do?
I have also experienced that, especially running Ubuntu. Mm-hmm. You'll find one thread with one person with exactly the same issue,
exact problem.
Yeah. And then just nothing happened.
That seems like as good a place as any. Did you feel like we addressed your point, Mike?
Yeah, I just wanted to to see if my experience was similar, and it sounds like it was.
You wanted us to post XKCD number 627. That's what you wanted, and you got it.
That came to mind as I was thinking about this, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I bet it's probably the same. And sure enough.
I actually, whenever I've had an office, that's one of the first things I print off and post to the cubicle wall or the wall or whatever.
Yeah.
It's always useful.
Mm-hmm. All right. In that case, say we wrap up for the week. And goodbye, broadcast.